And we're going to start with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for coming. Second item on our agenda is going to be a presentation to the Commission by Gordon Thomas Honeywell with a question and answer session to follow. So go right ahead, and I'm sure Larry's told you, but we don't expect you to stay for the rest of the meeting because it may not be that exciting. So thanks for coming.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. My name is Meg Van Schorel, and I am the Project Development Services Director for Gordon Thomas Honeywell Governmental Affairs. And with me also is Trevor Justin. I believe we have kind of twofold purpose of being here tonight. One is, as you said, to answer any questions based on the first presentation and materials that we provided to the Commission. If you have any final questions to ask us about lobbying contract for upcoming lobbying contract. And then also, I understood you wanted to meet with me. I wasn't at the July meeting when Brianna and Josh Weiss were here. And because some of this contract would involve project development, that you might want to meet with me and find out a little more about me. So I would like to go first and do a little bit of background on myself and talk about project development services, and also talk a little bit about some research I've done on your Sargent Oyster House project. And then I'll turn it over to Trevor, and he's also done some research about similar projects in other parts of the state. So in terms of background, I came to Gordon Thomas Honeywell Governmental Affairs in 2016 after 35 years of working for state government. And I know you must think, well, she must have been 5 when she started doing that.
Exactly what I thought.
Unfortunately, not true. But my state career gave me many opportunities to actually learn about the needs and issues that face local governments and communities. And that's because for about 20 of those years, I worked in managing local infrastructure financing programs, economic and community development programs for the Department of Commerce. It's now called Department of Commerce. It was Department of Community Development at the time. And also I managed international marketing programs for the Department of Agriculture. The remaining 15 years that I had in state government was with the legislature. Part of that time was with the Senate Ways and Means Committee, working on the state operating budget. And then my most recent position was with the House of Representatives, coordinator of the Capital Budget Committee for the House of Representatives. So my state government experience, I think, has well suited me for the job that I'm doing now with Gordon Thomas Honeywell because of the experience and then the network of contacts that I developed over those many years. Project development is really any activity that moves a project from the vision to the reality of it. And of course, a key part of moving it to reality is finding money for it, which is something I spend a lot of my time doing. But in order to secure funding for projects, there needs to be some pre-work done on clearly defining the purpose of the project, what are the key actions, what are the timelines, what are the costs that would be estimated along with it. And once those things are all determined, then going out and looking for funding for the project. I've worked this past year with a couple of local governments on this kind of project where they've said, this is our priority. Could you please find some money for us? In one case, a city wanted to extend their basic infrastructure from the downtown out to housing developments. In another case, a county wanted to renovate a juvenile detention center so it could offer more services than when it was originally built in the 70s. So those cases are not the same project, obviously, as your Oyster House restoration project, but the process is very similar in that first I worked with the local officials and the staff to more clearly and comprehensively frame what the project was, and those are the things I mentioned, like what's the purpose of it, what are we really, do we all agree on what we're trying to accomplish, what the time frame is, what the costs are, and then looking for potential funding. In those two cases, it turned out there were no competitive funding programs for juvenile detention centers and for the type of infrastructure project that the city was trying to do. So in both those cases, I worked with the staff to develop earmark requests for the legislature. And so I worked with the city and the county folks, and then in a smooth transition turned over the request to our lobbying team. And then the lobbying team takes it forward into the legislature. So in one case, the local government decided to go after money, and they were awarded a capital budget grant last session. In the other case, the county decided to wait until this upcoming session to go after the grant. But in both cases, I did a pretty thorough review of state and federal funding sources, and even though no competitive funding source was found in those cases, the local governments were able to go to legislators and say, we did our due diligence, we tried to find competitive funding sources, and finding none, we are coming to you for an earmark. So on this particular project, the Sargent Oyster House project, I will be the first to admit I have a lot to learn about that project, but I have been given some information from Brianna and from Trevor. And so with the information I had, I went to the USDA Rural Development, called my contact there, and that this type of project is something that they would be interested in taking a look at. They have something called Community Facilities Grants and Loans, and starting October 1st, which is the federal fiscal year, that would be an opportunity to have them come out, assess the project, and see whether they might be able to participate financially. I also gave a call to Pacific Coast Shellfish Growers Association, and I thought it might be kind of a long shot, but actually when I talked to their executive director, apparently they already had this project on their radar, have actually provided some contributions to the project, and fully expect that at some point they might get involved again, because they said it's definitely a very significant project for, historically for that industry. And then finally, the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation has quite a list of potential funding sources for historic properties. So that would be, although I haven't done any work related to this project on that, that would be a place to start to look for some other sources of funding. So with that, I'd love to be able to work with the Port of Allyn. I live in Olympia, so my husband used to be a port commissioner, so for the Port of Olympia, so I do have an appreciation for the work that ports do. With that, I'd be happy to answer questions that you have.
Meg, through the USDA, would that just be a sole grant through the rural development, or would that be funding that they would try to get out of the federal budget for the Oyster House?
Well, it would be a grant. So they get money through the federal government for their programs. So it would be, it wouldn't be an earmark. It would be part of the competitive grant process. And I don't know if it would be a grant or a loan. I mean, there's some,
Interest.
income, community income stipulations and all of that that determine whether something can be a full grant or partial grant.
So one of the questions I have is, we have multiple projects, the Oyster House being one of them. We have a park in Belfair that we're partnering in. There's a sports park that we talk about. We have a dock renovation that we do have money for now, but how shovel-ready do you think that project should be before you get involved, or are you the one that's gonna make it shovel-ready, or help us get there? Because the Oyster House, we've just taken over in the last, couple of meetings.
Right.
And we don't even know how much it's gonna cost. There's people that'll sit in the audience and tell us what they think, but
Right.
is now the time to engage you in that, or is after we have some kind of engineer's report that gives us an idea of what we're looking at, the time to do it?
Well, I get involved with projects everywhere from the very beginning discussions about them on framing the project to when a project's ready to go, where's money that can come, that can be gotten for that project. So now is as good a time as any. That having said that, there is a need for having engineering services and sort of adjunct consultants that have other skills than mine to work as a team on projects like that.
But is sometimes going after the money for those engineering services a possibility?
Right, yes. Yep. Was that clear, my
Yeah,
answer to?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have to have a project ready for you to go get funding for. You can help us get it ready.
No, but when the more shovel-ready it is, the more that the I's have been dotted and T's crossed, the more compelling your story's going to be for a funder. And the legislature, is one where they do want to know if we provide an earmark in the 2019 budget, are you going to be ready to go during that year or the next year, or is this kind of a pipe dream? So there's going to be some tough questions asked before the legislature or an agency will say yes to grants.
And I think I understood you to say that you won't just be looking for capital budget money, that you'll be looking for other money for us as well.
There can be other, if you have a priority project that has to do with operations, I can do that as well.
But not just capital money. That's not
Right.
only what you'll be looking for.
That's not only, but, it also is a matter of what's your priority and the timing of it, because I think under this contract, this includes project development services and lobbying. And so I think normally what we would do is use this fall, for example, to get ready for an ask of the legislature. So then as time progresses on this contract, other projects can be added.
Got it. Would it be, would we be asking for several projects, or would we want to pick one, a priority, and kind of stick with it per year? Because we do have a handful of projects that we want to do, but
Right, yeah.
none of them
I
are
think
funded.
that the proposal, I was looking at it briefly, talks about for the first year, it would be lobbying for one funding request for the 2019 legislative session and having me help in the preparation of that request. And then each of the subsequent years talks about, using me in a slightly different way. So I think over the 3 years that are in this proposal, there would be an opportunity to do multiple projects. But I think this fall, we would want to focus on your top priority for the legislative session.
And if I can just
Sure.
interject, sorry to come late.
That's okay. Yeah.
Principal in the firm. You increase your odds of being successful with the legislature if you focus on one request rather than trying to advance multiple requests within the legislature. If you're advancing multiple requests within one budget, within the capital budget, you're essentially competing with yourself.
So, sure.
Okay, I have a question along that same line. If we were focused on that project and we go after a capital budget request for it, that doesn't preclude us from looking for other monies in other places.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And Trevor, I don't know if you've already spoken, but Trevor did some preliminary look at other types of projects throughout the state that are similar and how they've packaged and marketed
Oh,
their
great.
project. And he's prepared to speak to some
Thanks,
other
Meg.
examples.
Yeah, you're
Appreciate it.
Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much.
I guess that's my cue. Just to introduce myself, Trevor Justin again with the firm. A little bit of background on myself. Started legislative work actually while I was still in college. I was one of the student lobbyists for Central Washington University, so familiar with the legislative process from the higher education standpoint, from the budget standpoint on that front. After that internship, I was with the Washington State Medical Association for over 3 years. So I've been doing this work for about four full years now. Brianna and Meg are obviously way smarter than I am, so I just take orders from them. But yeah, I did some preliminary research, on some of the other projects, some of the other historical sites around the state on what, you guys kind of get some ideas for the Sergeant Oyster House. One of the first ones I looked at was the Mukilteo Lighthouse, or Light Station, also known. That piece was originally owned by the U.S. Coast Guard, as you can imagine, and the city of Mukilteo started leasing the light station in 1991 from the Coast Guard. The city made improvements, kind of replaced some floors and made some upgrades to the building, and then the Mukilteo Historical Society was running tours on that property. In 2001, the U.S. Coast Guard transferred ownership from the Coast Guard to the city and the Historical Society. So that's kind of one way how a transaction can go. The light station was used with the city and the Historical Society for group and special events, weddings, parties, field trips, tours, things of that nature. And that lighthouse is on the National Register of Historic Places, which would include it to be on the state register, the Washington State Heritage Register. Another piece I looked at was the Gig Harbor net shed. From the Scansey brothers. There's actually about 17 net sheds, so there's a variety of them. I just looked at the Scansey brothers one. I don't know if you know what a net shed is. I certainly didn't when I looked at it, but it's a house, a structure to kind of store fishing nets. As you could imagine, there'd be a good location in Gig Harbor for that. That net shed was a nonprofit educational organization established in 2015, so rather recently. And that was dedicated to the preservation and advancement of the fishing family heritage by Gig Harbor's commercial fishing industry. That foundation secured a 20-year lease with the city of Gig Harbor to ensure seasonal public access to the facility. And what they do there is, they maintain artifacts, develop displays and educational programming for that industry, and schedule summer tours and even holiday parties and events like that. That net shed is also on the National and State Register. And then one other piece I looked at was the South Whidbey Historical Society Museum in Langley, Washington, up there in Whidbey Island. That museum, that is more of just a museum, and that's run by the South Whidbey Historical Society, made up entirely of volunteers working to keep the museum, which used to be a historic landmark for the loggers' bunkhouse actually, in operation. And that society offers tours of the museum, which includes ancient artifacts, history of local Native Americans, and artifacts from the city. The potential uses, obviously you guys have your own building. I know you guys were talking about using it as a historical museum, potentially an educational center for aquaculture and marine science, I saw in an article. And then, I don't know if this is your plan, but another community event center to host weddings, banquets, meetings, parties, things of that nature. So just some things to keep in mind for as you proceed forward. And Meg obviously covered a lot of the grant opportunities, so yeah, that's just a couple like-minded projects that you guys could kind of get a flavor for what you want to do going forward.
Did you have any information on how they were funded, or if they were funded?
So a lot of the projects, once they're included on the National Heritage and the Washington Heritage Register, that opens it up to numerous grants. I actually gave the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation a call, and there was a link on their webpage that had all different sorts of grants that Meg would explore. I did talk about your site. They obviously mentioned that it's up on blocks, so it's not feasible at the moment, but once you kind of proceed forward and get that thing in a sturdy location, you could apply for the state register and the national register, and that opens it up to a lot of different grants. And obviously we could work on capital budget funding as well, so.
Great.
I think one of the reasons I asked Trevor to do this research and share this with you is there are some key decisions that Meg would navigate for you all in helping you make prior to asking for legislative funding. Do you want it to be on the historic register so it does open up to all these grant programs? How do you want the facility to be used? Does it have a community benefit, or is it purely an event venue? You can kind of look and see what other communities have done with similar assets, but you do need to have a vision of what this facility is. Where Meg can really assist with that is knowing, well, here's the grant programs that you'd be eligible for. So as you're picking your uses, pick a use that not only makes sense for the community, but also maybe lends a good story on the funding aspect.
Judy is going to come in the door.
Oh, good.
For her approval.
Welcome. Get through.
I haven't done that in a long time.
Forget?
Yes.
Oh, I've done that a couple times.
The Oyster House is Judy's project.
Yeah, so we're just talking about our project, and the firm has given us a presentation and talked quite a bit about what they could do with the Oyster House, and it's all on video though, so you'll be able to see it
I'm
later.
really sorry.
But they've done some research, some really good research, and gave us some information, and
Good.
kind of, it helped me a lot.
We just shored up some more another wall yesterday. We're working on it. Well, good.
Trevor did say that since it's on blocks, that it's not eligible for any of the national or local historic money, but once we get it to a secure spot, which I'm sure you knew, but
Yes, yeah.
then it opens up a whole bunch of new grant type funding. Yeah.
I mean, as an initial funding request, we could go more robust than this, but initial funding request could just be
Get it
asking the legislature to have you get permanent placement somewhere, so that then you could develop a more robust funding plan with the eligible grant programs.
Yeah, the hard part is kind of like putting the cart before the horse. It has to be restored first. I mean, because it's fallen apart, so it's got to be restored. Then we can put it over the water. And we do understand that it's not eligible for any national registry.
I have a question. Part of the project is going to involve removing the old boat launch ramp that's out there. Would that be eligible for some of this money as well?
Removing the boat launch?
Right.
You know, there's the Recreation and Conservation Office has a number of grant programs.
Yeah, I'm working on one right now.
Are you? This
Yeah.
fall? Yeah, so the boat launch or the boating facilities
Right.
program.
That's the one I'm working on.
Yeah, so, you know, that's where I would look first, would be at one of those programs.
Okay.
And depending on cost, you could roll it into a larger request. I mean, you kind of have to figure out how to put together a phase of the project that is realistic for the legislative and political environment. So I don't know we'd have to like dive into specific dollar amounts.
So would you put together like a presentation to the legislators that said, okay, here's the project, here's how we're going about it, here's where money for this part of it's coming from? Is that how that works?
There's a form that for both the Senate and the House, for each. The Senate
Right.
has its forms and the House has a form. And so we would be filling that form out, or working with you to fill it out. And then that becomes the basis of the request. And then Brianna and Trevor would be having you meet with your legislative delegation for the Senate and the House to share the form with them and the project with them. So, and to garner their sponsorship of your request.
Okay.
And is that through the capital budget? Yeah, that's kind of what we've been,
Yeah, that's
because there's less strings
right.
type thing.
And before you got here, I was mentioning that my last job was with the House capital budget as a coordinator of the House capital budget. So, you know
You know how it works. Put your name in the corner.
Oh, great.
But I mean, it really is the appropriate place for a restoration project.
Great. Okay, good.
Did you have any other questions?
I just, you know, I wonder about, I'm sure there's no data on success rate, but I mean, so we lay out an expense of our own and we're a small port. I mean, return on investment, is it likely, highly likely?
Well, I don't know.
It's probably not even something you can answer. But
Brianna has incredible information on her lobbying return on investment.
Every public agency that has hired us has seen a return on the investment within 2 years,
that's good news.
a full legislative plan. If we realize that the request that we're working on in 1 year is for some reason fatally flawed, sometimes we will pivot to a different request or repackage it for the second year so that we can be sure that you're seeing that return on investment. So, you know, if for some reason we discover that, you know, we put together the best package we could for the Sergeant Oyster House, but it's just really not viable for capital direct appropriation funds, then we were trying to pivot and make sure you're still getting funding from some other mechanism.
We can get multiple years funding on the same project.
Yes, it does. This is where Meg's expertise becomes very helpful because when you receive capital budget funding, you're going to correct me if it's wrong, right? Once you receive capital budget funding, you have to deliver a portion of the project that is beneficial or usable to the community, or you cannot spend the money until you receive the remainder of the funding. So you want to explore how you can phase it, or whether you could get exception to that general rule, which we really don't advise. But there are sort of parameters around that. Sometimes, you know, going back to the well multiple times for one project, you want to think strategically about telling your legislators that from the get-go, that we're anticipating this to be a 4-year project. We need $7 million, but we don't need it all this year. We need it over 4 years. And here's how we're going to tackle this, so that then they can expect to have you keep coming back.
Those are the questions I had. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, being that I came in late, I missed the whole boat.
I came in late too, so.
I could do it again.
Well, I do have some questions, but I don't know if it's really,
Ask away.
Yeah, ask away. That's why
but,
they're here.
well, some of it is, you know, we have some legislators that we've been working with. You know, of course, it's an election year. I think one of them has given us one of those forms to make sure we get on.
Yeah,
with
I
some.
have both House and Senate forms.
Okay, so.
They do change them, I mean, they update them every year, and I just recently called them, and they haven't got their new forms developed yet for this upcoming session, but what you have will give you a good idea of what will be asked.
Okay. Well, and the hard part for this, now we have a volunteer, he's the industrial designer, acting as an engineer, but he's really qualified, and he's working with us and going to get all the drawings, and he's getting a lumber list together. We haven't had good solid numbers for a while. I mean, we've had some numbers, but kind of not in a schematic situation. So I think with these updated numbers that will help, and that's kind of tied our hands to a degree. Now Bonnie Knight has championed this a lot, and we've gone to the historical caucus, as I'm sure you're aware of, and been pitching this, so they know a lot about it already, but now we just have to get the push. The numbers are pretty close of what was preliminarily suggested. I'm thinking they might be more, and maybe that's my question. If we ask for too much, is that better? Or do we ask for, is it a narrow margin that you really have to be close? Otherwise, does that ruin your credibility if you're not close? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I mean, I would think you should be close. If you go in with something that people are going to look at and just think it's wildly out of out of reality.
It really,
that far.
it really depends on the dollar amount
Yeah.
that you're asking for. I mean, there also is the general rule of ask for more and expect to receive less. If you are asking for more, you have to have an explanation of what that money would go toward. And if you were to get it all, you would want to be a good, responsible steward of delivering a project with that money. So a lot of it depends on what that dollar amount is.
Well, I think now we're getting just put together. Engineering is close, and with that, the engineering, we can actually go out and get bids. Not that necessarily a contractor would do it, but then it gives us a better handle on how much it's actually going to cost. And because we're doing it so slow, I mean, the building's pretty hurt bad, but it's doable. Anything's doable if you've got enough funds, but it's been kind of a slow go, and part of it, at least for me, is that without the funding, I feel like my hands are tied. I can't go out and go get people to volunteer when I can't promise them we've got the materials to do the job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about a little bit too, is, it's one thing to ask for money, but you have to do kind of the pre-work in order to have the sort of the timelines, the costs, what purpose are you doing this for, and have agreement, because I've seen situations where once you start talking about it, you realize there's not necessarily agreement even among the people who are the proponents of it, about what to do with that property, for example, or that building, for example.
Judy, when we had, I think it was the last time you guys were here, we had the Oyster House meeting before our meeting, and then so we had people in the crowd, and somebody had said their estimation was $1 million. Is that
no, that's
total
not.
project or just restoration?
Probably 500 to 700. That would be including everything. I mean, that's high. Bonnie's estimation was a little lower, but we have done a lot of work already. I mean, it doesn't look like it, but we have done some. So, but there's still a lot to do, I mean, right now I'm just concentrating on trying to get the structure redone, but then there's still, the historical part, the museum part that needs to be done, putting all that together. We thought we had somebody, but she's not able to be on board for the museum part. But again, we need hard numbers, and we don't have all the pieces put together.
Do you have a site for it?
Yeah, the old launch ramp.
Oh, okay.
So we would
So
tear it
that's-
That's what I was asking.
Tearing down a boat launch.
Yeah. And it's derelict, you can't use it. I mean, you can walk on it, but you can't use it. So that's in the plan. We are working with a biologist, marine biologist, who has volunteered his time. Or did you guys already know that? I'm repeating myself. No, he's done a lot of work, and he's done previous work. His name's Bill Ray. And he's done a lot of work for us previously, matter of fact, to help our dock, part of our dock extension, was it? I can't remember what part Bill helped with us.
Permitting.
Yeah. So he's been working with us on getting this done, and has a lot of just a good rapport with Army Corps and DFW, and so it's been really helpful.
We're also in the process of having an archaeological survey done on the entire park property. So for any future projects, it's going to already be done. We ran into it with the marina project and thought in the end it just made more sense to just do the whole park at once now.
That's right, because as you know, with RCO grants, if you get a grant, then you have to face that anyway at some point.
Yeah.
So that's really smart. When you weren't here, I was talking about how I had called the Puget Sound, or the Pacific Coast Oyster Grower, or Shellfish Growers Association, because I had a contact there. I don't know if you had been in contact with them, but they knew about
They gave us a donation.
yes, that's what she said.
Yeah.
And that it's really
They've been
an
supportive.
important structure for them.
Yep.
And that they kind of expect that at some point it'll come back to them. I don't know if whether that would be for a grant, but it might be for, museum materials that oyster growers and other shellfish growers have in their basements or attics that could be displayed in a museum.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a great conversation because I didn't know that it was already on their radar screen.
We've actually had a lot of support. Squawfish
Tribes donated, Taylor Shellfish, Pacific Growers. Gosh, who else? There's been just a lot of local people as well, like I said, and I've been amazed about how many really highly qualified people have donated their time and effort. Like the guy, Mike Ross, who is our engineer, used to work for NASA, and he's invented a few things. He's a really amazing guy. So he's going to be the project manager for a while. He's working, free until the end of this year, and then we got to probably pay him something.
It's great that you have all those community partners that put together the funding request. We work to try and get letters of support from each of them to accompany their request and make that part of the lobbying strategy on how they engage with the legislative process to enhance the request.
And the legislature usually likes that other people have skin in the game, so to speak. So you're not just coming to the state to fund the whole thing. It's good to see that a lot of other community partners have put up funds for it. So I think that helps them kind of get on board a little bit more as well. So
All the donations have been tracked, right? Yeah,
Society,
to the
yes.
Historical
Yes,
Society.
it has. The port hasn't really gotten anything. The port owns the building, but North Bay Historical Society has been the driving force behind
We
it.
paid for a permit.
Yes, we've paid for permit and shoreline permit, a building permit.
I think if you all want to move forward with the contract, we would want to start with an initial meeting where we kind of go through all of the details, kind of walk through the form, talk about packaging strategy, funding amount, all of that. Probably like an hour and a half, 2 hour conversation.
Okay.
And Brianna, for me, as long as we could do that 2-track, we look for the legislature, but then we're also looking for more private donations and support, even if we have to go back to the same people again, because as long as that building's sitting out there, I mean, Judy and her volunteers have been doing an amazing job, but it's not going to last too many years without it being refurbished. So I'm being quiet because I'm full support of doing this. So having worked with lobbyists for a long time, I understand the importance and how many doors you could open up for us. So.
Great, good. Well, I don't have any more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, so I was
So
late
that'd
again.
That's going to be the end of that section. You got the,
And do you all have any more questions?
Budget.
I can have you take
No,
over
we'll
from
just
here. I
wait
just want to
till
make sure I
the
didn't miss
review
anything.
I'm sorry?
We'll just wait to hear from you.
Great, thank
Okay.
you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Then we've got,
The budget was next, I think.
yeah, unless we're going to go to the resolution.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Are we allowed to discuss?
Yes, you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. I
It's on
think
the
we can.
agenda, you can
Yep.
discuss it.
I think you both, Scott, probably the last meeting, but I've known the firm. They're very reputable, and I really like, this is the first time I heard their presentation, that approach of just, hey, there's private and public partnership we get for that. I think for the port, if we were to see movement on that oyster house, there'd be so many people excited. You've heard me say that before. So spending the money on these folks in this firm to do it, I think it'd be money well spent. So, and hopefully years from now, people can enjoy that oyster house, and it's not costing us that much for the return that we would eventually need to get that thing in the water. So, I mean, that's my opinion.
I appreciate that. My concern is that we, it's 25, 20, 24 this year, and how much next year? 30 next year?
30.
And then 36 a third year.
You know, and then what's that taking away from? I'm in support of, I'm going to vote yes on going forward with our hiring the firm, but I'm concerned with the money. Now, in my head, I can say, well, we've been budgeting 12,000 in timber tax, we've been getting 75, so there's the money, but I think we have other things that we also need to consider. I do believe that the Oyster House is our top project, that is what we should be spending our effort on, and money. We haven't been spending money on it. To hear that they have 100% success rate in the biennium, kind of made me feel better about the decision, but today's probably not the day to discuss it, but do we need to discuss different, a funding source for everyday business? Because, last year we bought a truck because we had extra money. This year we're gonna pay for lobbying, next year lobbying. But are we putting anything away for a rainy day? If a piece of property comes up, do we have money set aside to buy that? With that said, I've been supportive of this.
Well,
I
once
wanna
we,
get the Oyster
once we
House.
get the marina project finished, we should be generating new, that's a complete new revenue stream. And part of that project will be the pay machine like we have at the North
Right,
Shore, and
yeah.
you saw the difference that made.
Absolutely.
So, where I don't think we're gonna have the amount of difference that we had out there, I think it's a difference that we'll see. And,
Yeah.
No,
No, I'm just
And-
worried.
at a $1 a foot per day per boat, and we can do 12 boats up to 50 feet, it's got a lot of revenue potential.
Yeah.
So,
I'm kind of with you in one sense.
I mean, I am too. I'm the one that's got to bring the
Right.
budget to you.
Well, I read it today. So.
Yeah. And I'm confident that we can go forward, if nothing else, this year. The one thing that they did say to us was, if we're not happy after the first year, or there's an issue, that we're not bound to the other 2 years, that they would rather have us part company as friends
Sure.
and come back when
Yeah.
things got better than to have an ugly contract resolution
Sure.
situation. So I like that.
Well, that gives me a little more peace. One of my
Excuse me.
concerns too, I mean, the Oyster House, we need to get that funded
Yeah.
and done.
Yeah.
But for 3 years in a row, what kind of projects do we have? The Oyster House is gonna be one big project. And, we haven't even really dealt with what is that going to bring in. We still own it, but we haven't really leased it out yet. We haven't gone that far because it's been sitting there, but.
But
that
that's
could
another
be-
revenue source to consider.
It could be. It depends on who leases it.
Right.
North Bay doesn't have a lot of money. It would be good if they could operate it, but that might be an option for us to take it over and operate it.
Right.
Because it could be, but as a museum, I'm not sure. I'm going too far into detail about that, I think, because that's something that we do need to work out. It could be a source of income. But I don't think my concern, I think like with you, 3 years of it, I don't know if we have enough projects to pay for that, for them for 3 years.
Well,
Well, I think we could come up with enough projects.
yeah, I don't think finding
Sweetwater, and I
projects is
saw you
difficult.
had,
Good point, yep. Okay,
at
well, as
least
long as we
searching
got-
for industrial property or maybe even
Right.
recreational property or.
Or just property
Park
that comes on the
improvements,
market, kind of
the,
like
the
the
house,
situation we
yeah.
have with Ogren.
Yeah,
Well, because I've been talking to some of the legislators that are up for reelection, I feel pretty confident that they are behind it. So, but I don't know if just us going in and asking for money would be enough clout to get that without,
They have more clout than we have.
yeah.
you got money for the marina though,
Yes, I did.
quite a bit too.
Yes, yes, I did.
I know, it's just, I think I'm willing to try it. I don't know if we can do 3 years of it, though. That's my only concern, and I don't want them to feel, shorted or disregarded either.
Well, we can try it for a year, see how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm willing to try it.
Since the meeting, I've got more information. I appreciate what you have to say, and I'm
Yeah.
ready to move
That
forward.
helps, thank
Yeah.
you.
I mean, they were amazing for me in Port Orchard, which is why I called them.
Yeah.
$25,000 first year, they got a 700. Second year was 30,000. It's kind of the same kind of structure we have here. And the second year, they got us over 400 to finish the project that the 700 started. So, and they got money for something else for it.
No, we can,
What do we need to do? Do we need to have a motion or just
I think we
pass
do
a
for
Yeah,
resolution?
need a motion to allow me to engage in a contract.
and where is the,
And I have a resolution that, since that exceeds my spending authority,
Okay.
but you may want to, what I've done is I calculated the amount for the 3 years. So you could either do, change it to 1 year and change the amount, or,
I think I'm okay with going with the full 3 years, and then if we make a change, we'll have to
yeah,
amend
come
it
back
or-
and do it. Then, if we do go forward with the 3 years, we don't have to fool with this again.
Right.
So, whatever you want to do.
Well, I would make a motion that we pass a resolution that allows our director to enter into an agreement with Gordon Thomas Honeywell and
here's the resolution.
the amount there.
You want to read it?
So do we have to have the motion first?
We'll read it.
Okay.
And I changed
second it.
that one says
I'll second
August
the motion.
6th. I changed the date on it on here so I can print a new one for y'all to sign when we get done.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Okay.
Be it resolved by the Commissioners of the Port of Allyn as follows. Whereas the Board of Commissioners of the Port of Allyn, it says has met, it probably should say have met, and considered the possibility of hiring a lobbying firm.
Let me get in here and look at this.
Here, I'll spell check it for you. To further the port's interests. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners, after duly considering all relevant evidence and testimony presented, hereby agrees to hire a lobbying firm to further the port's interests. While the amount of an agreement to secure such services exceeds the Executive Director's spending authority as delegated to him on June 10th, 2016, the Commissioners hereby delegate a one-time authority to sign a contract for the port to secure lobbying services to the Executive Director. Whereas the Port of Commissioners, Port of Allyn, hereby authorize the port's Executive Director to sign a contract with a lobbying firm approved by the Commissioners not to exceed the total cost of $90,000 payable in monthly installments over a 3-year period, adopted by the Board of Commissioners of the Port of Allyn at the regular public meeting thereof held the 6th day of August.
27th day
September.
of September.
27th day of September,
September.
2018, and duly authenticated in open session by the signatures of the commissioners voting in favor thereof and the seal of the commission. Adopted this 27th day of September 2018.
And Ted seconded it.
Okay?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, so moved. With corrections. Here we go.
Let me print a new one and I'll
Mm-hmm.
get it
I
to you
ran out the door and
by the
forgot
end of
my-
the meeting.
Laptop.
Oh, I've
So I'm
read,
going to have to share.
I've read through
Okay.
everything, so if you want to read, or if you need to.
Okay. Did you update this narrative?
Yes, I
at all?
did.
Okay,
A little bit, not much, but I'll just go ahead and read it. It's basically the same.
okay.
Okay, on tonight's agenda is a revised draft copy of the 2019 budget for your review. The only changes from the draft budget presented on September 5th was adding $1,000 to the legal cost line item as requested by Commissioner Jackson. This was accomplished by reducing a number of line item expenses by small amounts. As we did at the September 5th meeting, I'll attempt to be a bit proactive here and explain what I anticipate your questions might be. What you have in front of you are the 2018 budget numbers as well as the August 30th year-to-date budget versus actual numbers and their percentage of this year's budget for comparison. As you can see, we're on track with the 2018 budget for just about every item except for a few unanticipated expenses. The overall expense budget is up by a little over $16,000. However, on the plus side, revenue is up by an almost like amount. This budget does include $24,000 for the lobbyists if you choose to hire them, $5,000 for the Oyster House and the capital budget, and $5,000 more for January to April expenses than in 2018. Otherwise, we'd be $18,000 under last year's budgeted expenses. It also includes a more than $2,000 increase from Honduras. In looking at 2018 expenses, there's a significant amount of one-time expenses that were not budgeted for, like a $26,000 truck and over $8,000 in grading and new rock for all our parking lots. There's also quite a bit more travel than we budgeted for, with the majority of that being mileage and hotels for bias training, which is incorporated in the 2019 budget. As you can see, payroll is up by just over $9,500. While that sounds like a lot is included in that, including raises for staff as well as state-mandated increases for yourselves. We budgeted $1 per hour raises for both Don and Leanne, and a 4.4% raise for myself, which is slightly less than you all awarded me in 2018. I believe Don and Leanne are worth much more than what we budgeted, but that's the money we have to work with. Don saves us significant amounts of money by being able to do work we'd otherwise have to contract out. Leanne has really hit the long ball learning bias and has done so under some very trying circumstances. I believe I've earned a raise as well by managing us into the financial position we're in, especially considering where we were when I started here in 2015. Also, by obtaining the capital budget money for the marina project and my serving as the hands-on construction manager for that project, as well as the Oyster House and launch ramp removal projects, will save us significant amount of money as well. Based on the amount of meetings each of you attend, it's obvious from the year-to-date numbers that Commissioner Scott by far attends many more community and other meetings outside the regular port meetings, which is why her overall compensation is budgeted somewhat higher than the other two commissioners. I had discussed the staff increases in advance with Commissioner Scott, so I hope you will concur on the amounts budgeted. Also included in the payroll total are significant increases for mileage for everyone over last year. This is one place we did miss the mark in 2018, although, as I said, the bulk of that increase was for unbudgeted travel to Spokane for bias. The mileage numbers for 2019 are also based on both the year-to-date figures as well as WPPA's 2019 meeting schedules that require travel. For example, the spring meeting will be held in Spokane this year. According to MapQuest, the one-way mileage is 323 miles from here to the Davenport Hotel, meaning that for each attendee, the round-trip cost for mileage is $352.07. We budgeted for 3 people for that meeting. The environmental seminar will be held in Chelan. The round-trip mileage cost for that is $245.26 per person, budgeted for 2 people. However, after reviewing the agenda for this year's meeting, we didn't see the value in attending, as almost nothing will apply to us. We don't know if that'll be the same case next year because there's no agenda yet. The small port seminar in Leavenworth, which everyone usually attends, is 179 miles or $195.11 per person. WPPA hasn't set a location for the commissioner seminar yet, so we budgeted mileage for all 3 of you to go to Spokane, that being the worst case scenario. This is perhaps the largest percentage in dollar increase over last year's numbers, but perhaps the most realistic mileage numbers ever. Also, facilities maintenance numbers are significantly up from 2017 and from what we budgeted in 2018. The bulk of that, over $8,000, was for grading the rock in all of our parking lots. This was an expense that wasn't budgeted at all last year, but was needed. We spent more for higher quality rock with the expectation of only needing to grade it in 2019. So far it's met our expectations, but a rainy day or rainy winter will be the true test. Also checked with Bias about the amount of our annual fee. They told me to anticipate a 5% increase over what we paid this year, so that cost is in this budget as well. On the revenue side, we won't have revenue numbers for property tax revenue until later this year. So we did the same thing as we did last year. We added 1% to the number for this year. That number will undoubtedly be higher than we budgeted, which is a good thing and provides us with some cushion. Same thing with the timber tax revenue. We budgeted $11,000 in 2018, but the number's been significantly higher and the year isn't out yet, which means there could possibly be even more yet to come. As I've done every year, I prefer to budget revenue very conservatively and receive more than we anticipate, and expenses liberally, so we always have a cushion rather than the other way around. As part of our budgeting process, we've also included a moderate rate increase, $1,000 overall, and anticipated additional revenue for the water system beginning in January, which, as you know, is an enterprise fund. I will present new rate recommendations at the November regular meeting. We'll have a public hearing at that meeting and the December meeting for approval of an increase. Currently, the water fund is in the black, which it was not before the increase last year. However, any unexpected repairs will have to come from our general fund reserves because we have almost no reserves in the water fund itself. I'd like us to start building a reserve for those eventualities. Those kind of things aren't ifs, but whens, and we need to be prepared. Also, after this year, the system only has one more payment on the IDD loan. We've also had our pay station on the North Shore reprogrammed to include the credit card discounts we pay, which average 3.5% per transaction. We've absorbed these costs since installing the machine, but since we've obtained public acceptance of the pay station, I see no reason to continue doing that. This will boost revenue there as well as in Allyn when we install the machine here, as our merchant fees will all be covered. However, we didn't budget any of that as additional revenue. Also, we anticipate an amount of additional moorage revenue in Allyn once the marina project is finished, but didn't account for any of that in our revenue calculations either. Excuse me. The one thing that I'd really like to point out is that our cash carryover is a healthy $79,303.60. However, if we hadn't purchased the truck, which was $26,323.42, budgeted $24,000 for the lobbyists, and added $5,000 over last year to our January to April expenses, our cash carryover would be $134,624.26, which would be up $32,337.26 over our 2018 total of $102,290. So, with that, I hope I addressed most of your questions, and I'm happy to answer any that you might have.
We haven't looked at the budget yet, but the Oyster House for $5,000, I talked to you about that, North Bay has some funds, but we may need some immediate funds. And I was just concerned that if we have to spend more, because before, we had almost $14,000 budgeted. And that's kind of what a lot of...
But we haven't spent more than $5.
No. Well, that's true. I guess just knowing that it was there, but again, we've had our hands...
That and anticipating the lobbyists getting us some money.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the money that North Bay Historical Society has.
Yeah.
The grant money they have. What I see is us maybe having to front some of that money, but getting it reimbursed.
Okay, so, that was my only concern. So I'm good with the 5,000, but if we need it, at least we have this carryover.
We got the cash carryover, and we may get more if the timber tax keeps coming in the way it's been. At the rate that it's come in, it could exceed $100,000 this year.
Okay,
So
I'm pretty good with all that.
One thing I'd like to, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
On the Oyster House, is it possible that we're taking more of a ownership of it, or a ownership of it, to see what the expenses are? I haven't seen what we're spending that $5,000 or $14,000 on. So I guess if somebody's keeping the books, if the board commissioners could see what that money's being spent on.
what the
we
port
have-
money's went for has just been permitting.
Oh, just
Yeah.
permitting?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
No,
all
they
we've
haven't
spent.
Okay, so it's not like materials or anything?
No.
Okay.
All
right.
we've spent was a building permit and the shoreline permit.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
All right.
and North Bay's been carrying the rest,
Okay,
which has been through donations and fundraisers.
okay, great, got it, thank you.
Yeah.
So under payroll,
Oh, yeah, can we look at
we've
that?
got the executive director's budgeted amount of payroll at 85,000, which is isn't that the amount we earmarked for everything?
Now, the amount,
So what I'm seeing is,
General fund
so
expenses.
I don't, I don't think that 85,000 is your pay, right?
No, that's what it was. You know, what we budgeted last year was 81,510 plus 6470 in payroll taxes and 351.80 for retirement. And then
Okay, so-
mileage, which, you know, really isn't payroll.
Right. We've separated it out.
Oh, I see.
So 81,510 is currently what you're
Right.
making.
Although, you know, with all of the back and forth that went on with all the problems in payroll, that's not what I've collected.
Well, I was gonna say, we haven't resolved that yet either.
But that was what we budgeted for last year.
Okay.
That was what you all approved after we,
Have you gotten less? Is that what,
yeah, I have.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I can tell you what it's been if you wanna, let me do the math here.
So then, what we're saying is that your monthly income is 7,083.33.
What I would have collected or will collect with the September payroll would be 58,500.
So
In
far.
spite of the fact we budgeted 81.
But aren't you on a, and I know we go through this every year.
Yeah,
It does.
So way back when, in the beginning,
right,
we said we had, was it 75?
80.
80. And that was to cover benefits, payroll taxes, everything.
Right.
So now we're saying we're at 85, and that doesn't cover benefits.
No, that
payroll
covers all
taxes.
that.
Okay, that's my question.
That covers all that.
Because further down, you have payroll taxes at 6502.
Well, no, the 85 covers insurance for me and my family.
Well, so 75 for everything,
But the
and now it's,
payroll taxes is what we would pay as a port,
okay.
like an
all right,
employer.
gotcha.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I just want to make sure, because I know we still have to resolve in retirement. So is the number 85 plus 6,500 plus 10,030, not 2,400?
2,400 is mileage.
No, I know, we will take that out. So is the executive director's total compensation that started out 3 years ago
At 80.
at 80,000, is it now 85?
101.
What's the total?
Or,
85 plus 6502.
right.
Plus the tax.
But those are payroll taxes that we
Yeah.
pay. Yeah.
And I mean, it's like with my employees, you know, you don't kind of count that as their wage. It's an employer.
But,
Cost.
out of that 85,
Right.
almost 13,000 of it is insurance.
So when we did 80 3 years ago, was that total compensation, or was
Right.
that, it was never to be the wage? It was pay,
Plus
benefits,
insurance.
which we
Yeah.
don't provide, pay, benefits,
I don't think tax.
retirement. No, I believe it
That
was.
wasn't, was that
So-
included in there? The taxes wasn't included?
It was
in there,
85
it? Total?
total for everything. So I would like to maybe look at that, because we do have an issue to resolve still. And if we can look at it and try to resolve the issue. And the issue is that it's this. I mean, it's this. I don't understand it. I was part of the original, when we set it up, it was a big leap of faith for us.
Yeah, that's
Because
for sure.
Rusty was making like 60,000 total, so we wanted a full-time employee, we wanted to pay government wages, pay benefits, pay retirement, everything. But let's just sit down and let's figure it out once and for all, so we don't have to have this discussion every year. And the other part is, we have to do an annual evaluation every year.
Yeah, which
Which we haven't done yet,
really
but
done
there's-
as a board.
Yeah, there's already a raise in there, not saying he does or doesn't deserve it, but is that something that we decide? And we did last year.
I'd like to say this. I feel like I've earned this money just by the fact that when I got here, we were in the red, and we're not now. And that we're on a track to, make money. I've created 4 new revenue streams that we didn't have. And that we're on a track to create 2 more with the marina. And that by my managing those projects, we can charge administrative fees to the grant that will more than pay my salary when we're done. But I feel like I've
I'm not saying
managed
you
us.
don't deserve whatever it is you're getting. I'm saying I don't understand what it is you're getting,
Okay.
because
I feel very strongly that I've managed us into a very strong financial position.
yeah.
One that we weren't anywhere near when I got here.
I guess I agree. I mean, you take out the payroll tax and the total compensation for you, the salary plus benefits, and your retirement would be a separate benefit. So is that the way you understand it, Scott?
Yes, yeah.
So you want it broken down differently then?
No, I understand where it's at.
Okay.
I just, that, take the payroll tax, that's not included in a salary, so.
So the part that we're still trying to figure out is
Is the retirement part?
if
Okay.
we accelerated above an amount that we agreed to. That's it.
Well,
Have we reached an amount larger than what we agreed to in public meetings? And
Oh, true,
Yeah.
because he's asking for a raise on this one.
yep, that one
And
and
so-
before, and there was some question before, we thought there was overpayment, and he was going to
And then it was
reimburse, and
underpayment.
then,
I
yeah,
think part of it was also the contract, the details in the contract got blurred.
yeah, where you all thought the contract said one thing, but, the contract that was signed by Gene said something else.
right.
When
I'd say tie
when I
it
was
up.
hired,
Nice little ball.
Gene and I went to lunch, and she said, are you good with this much per month? And I said, yeah, and that's what you put in the contract. And that started the difference.
Yeah.
And we had the whole insurance thing, and
Yeah.
Obamacare, and everything else.
Yeah,
So you really don't have a new contract, though?
No, I don't.
And we
No,
should
we should.
probably
We
do
do
that.
that.
we should figure it
Well,
out.
I would
Fix all
like
these
one, and I would
problems.
like it to be a multi-year contract.
Absolutely, yeah. And we'll make copies of it.
Yeah, there you go. And you all get one, yeah.
We'll keep it somewhere.
So for my help, when was that did that contract already expire?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was signed in 2015.
Yeah, so we never really have signed another contract.
No, we have not.
Yeah, when I was the board chair, we
Mhm.
we started going down this contract, and that's not the way I remember it, but then you produced it, and I'm like, wow, that's really not the way I remember it, but Gene was the board chair, so there
And
it
I was brand new, didn't know any
Yep.
better,
So I think we should just clean it up, like Leanne said, wrap it up, make sure our employee is fairly compensated and rewarded for his good work.
And the wording's not
Yeah, and,
usable.
yeah, and it's still, the contract's confusing. What went on for those years is confusing. And what I remember, what we started out with is not what we ended up with.
Yeah.
And I still don't, that's why I ask all these questions every year.
No, and-
Because I still don't
and that's
understand
fine.
it. I mean, I understand payroll tax, I understand retirement, I understand all that, I don't know how we got to that number.
Well,
So when do you want to do that?
Larry, when do we have to do that to finalize the budget?
well, you're supposed to approve the budget on Monday,
Monday at our meeting?
yeah. So we could sit down sometime like tomorrow or Monday,
No, it won't work for,
or Saturday,
I mean, I don't see why we can't approve the budget with
What about
that
doing it?
amount in there, but the contract is.
Well, you know what we could do? We could approve the budget the way it is because it's balanced. And then if we need to amend it, then
Yeah.
we just approve an amended budget at a future meeting.
I mean, I remember last year kind of talking about the raise and felt that, what was it last year, 4.5?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
And this is 4.4, so that's, you know, the percentage is less, but it's a smaller percentage on a larger amount.
Sure.
Well, I agree with what you say. I still have a problem that you're working with an expired contract, and that's on the commissioner's part to get that cleaned up. So, I will not be here on Monday, as I told you. I'll be in the woods up in northern Washington, but I would like to make it a priority for us to get that contract cleaned up, and whatever raise is decided upon, we approve.
Yeah.
So if we have to do it, we can do an amendment to the budget.
Yeah.
Yes, so.
I'd like to get that done as soon as possible, even if it's right after the meeting. I don't know if you have any time during the week or not, of first week, do you?
Yeah, I'm good to do it tonight if you want to.
Excuse me.
Who's our accountant?
Dave?
Dave. Did he make any progress on what he was looking through?
I don't know.
Actually, he is. I talked to him the other day
Oh, good.
and asked the same question, and he had a question about the medical expenses.
Oh,
I
okay.
gave him that, and he said he was pretty close to being finished with it.
And when will it get done, do you know?
I didn't ask him, he just said pretty close, so I assumed that meant soon.
I mean, we can approve the budget, and, I mean, if your contract is signed by the first of the year, I think
Mm-hmm.
we're doing good.
Yeah,
Well, there's three things. We need to get a new contract, we need to do an evaluation,
Yep.
and any amendments or discuss, about how that all works. So anyway, sooner the better. I
yeah,
think.
no, I agree.
Okay. Any other questions on it?
Just going through it, I know Larry mentioned the Allyn. So it looks like do you think that if we got a pay station, or when we get the pay station, that the Allyn revenue will go up or like the North Shore revenue?
It's not gonna go up
Not as
to the
much.
degree that did, but I'm convinced that it's going to go up.
I think with the dock upgrades, over 17 years I've been here, we get so many requests for power and water, and we would have moorage out here. So we're gonna have something to offer.
How many slips will be available?
12?
We got
12,
the
11.
engineering drawings,
Mhm.
I got those last week.
Mhm.
He's got a couple questions about a couple of things, but we're kind of stymied until the archaeological survey is finished. I did engage somebody to do that this week, so that'll be moving forward. She's supposed to talk to Bill Ray and find out where he's at. If the Corps of Engineers is involved, that trumps the state,
Mhm.
so we can maybe speed this up somewhat. But my goal is to be ready to go there about the 1st of May, so
How many slips?
12.
Okay. Great. Well, okay.
So let me go through this one more time. I think I had a couple other questions.
That's why we didn't put any revenue in there for that either. I didn't put revenue
Yeah,
in
that's-
for
That's good, actually.
for the credit card charges,
Mhm.
and I didn't put revenue in for anything to do with moorage there. We went off the moorage that we have for this year and last year, but that's the only moorage that we put in here. Didn't put anything for anticipated revenue from the new marina. And y'all have done this is going on the 4th time we did this, y'all know that's how I work.
Question on the Sweetwater, I know that's down the road, but have you heard any updates about this?
No, and actually I got an email from Mindy
Mhm.
day before yesterday, and she said, "Oh my God, I haven't talked to you in such a long time." And what I had gotten an email about from RCO about presentations for grants and what day, and I sent her an email and I said, "Is this our presentation for Sweetwater Park, or is there something we need to do with this?" And she sent me a note back and said, oh my God, I haven't talked to you forever. You know, we need to talk, but no, this isn't it. So,
Oh, okay.
and I put a call into her today because I thought this might come up tonight, but I just got her voicemail and haven't heard back.
Okay.
No other questions?
Something in the water budget there. We did put in one hookup fee because we've had a lot of interest in, you know, is this your water system if I buy this lot? I probably talked to a dozen people here in the last couple of months. And Jeff Carey is in the process of paving some road where we have water because he's trying to find where the valve is. And Don's been up there talking to him, and they've been digging, trying to figure out where it is before he paves, so you know we can get a box around it. But I only put one hookup fee in there, but I think you know we may have more than that when
Does
it's
he
all
have
done.
lots that he's going to sell?
Pardon?
Does he have lots that, does Jeff?
If he gets all this stuff done,
All
yeah,
the infrastructure done, okay, cool.
yeah. So I put that in there, and like I said in the narrative, we only have one more payment on the IDD loan for next year, so, and then the water system will be paid off.
Yeah, that's great.
But I want to start building some reserve. We have $1,000 here in a reserve fund, but I'd like to start building on that because if we ever have to fix anything, it's not going to be cheap.
No, that's for sure.
And that's why I said those aren't ifs, they're wins. In the capital budget also for the Oyster House, I originally had included the $160,000 that
Bonnie, go ahead.
that Bonnie got for the Historical Society. But Judy very rightfully pointed out, that's not our money.
All right, yeah.
So
Good one.
we shouldn't be budgeting it. But, so I took it back out. And then you can see the Allyn dock upgrades are funded, that 364 is the amount. Although we got 379, they hold back a certain percentage of it for their administration fee. So this is the amount that we have to work with.
You know, capital budget, oh, there we go. Is that
So,
right?
and what I put in there for the capital budget request for the Oyster House was 188,000, or 190,000. No, wait a minute, 200,000. I'm sorry. Total of 200,000. And I put 500,000 in for real estate acquisition for Ogren's property. I know that's completely unrealistic, but by the time I'm in the process, I'm hoping to finish the grant application up tomorrow. 250,000 by the time we get done with everything might be realistic, even if we only pay 125 for the property. But we're going to have to do, you know, mitigation on tearing it down and all sorts of other stuff. You know, plus the construction of a parking lot there.
Right.
You know, it was brought up when you mentioned that, probably, I don't know if I should say that yet, but because it is an old building, with the grant that we get it to purchase it, is that required that it has to be something to do with boating?
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
And what we talked about was that's where we park boat trailers.
okay.
You know, just kind of, instead of having them all lined up out here or out here,
That would
you know,
make
that's
people
just,
very happy.
Yeah.
that'll make the ramp a lot less congested, even if
Mhm.
it's just, you know, a staging area while they get their boat in the water, come back and, you know, get their boat, what they're gonna do with it, get their stuff in it, whatever.
More room for the Oyster House Museum parking.
Yeah, there you go. You know, plus it helped clear the pathway for getting the Oyster House through
That's true.
True. Be shorter distance.
there. Here you
Might
go.
save some money.
There you go. And I think I said this in my report last month, is I got a bid on getting that moved. And the guy had told me 50,000 on the phone, and when he came out here and looked at it, he said 29 plus
Oh, nice.
some insurance costs. So it's not as much as we originally thought, which I thought was good news.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any other questions. Do you?
No, I don't either.
Okay, well, you want to open the public hearing and then close the public hearing?
Sure.
Since we don't have anybody to testify?
We will open the public hearing on the 2019 budget. Do I hear anything? Okay.
Dana, anything?
Nothing? All right. Public hearing is closed.
All right.
No comment. Okay. Do you want to try to set a date for, in regard to Larry's contract and,
Yeah, I mean,
All that.
I believe, like I said, we can approve the budget, and then,
Well, you don't have to approve
You
it
don't
tonight
approve it
anyway.
no, I mean, on
Approve it
Monday, I don't think we have to
Yeah.
do your contract before Monday.
No.
I'd like to see what Dave's got, and just
Yeah, and
kinda,
get the old contract.
kinda go up
together
to,
and
kinda go through a history and just once and for all, fix your contract, make it
No,
right.
I'm all for that. And, you know, what you could do if you wanted, oh, one thing that, well, this is gonna come up Monday, y'all might wanna just think about it right now. We are gonna do the thing with writing our own checks.
yes.
One of you has to be a signer, and you might want to decide who's going to be the chair next year and have that person be the signer.
Okay.
It's Ted's turn.
Yeah.
Decided to rotate it.
That's good to me.
All right, so when would you like to meet?
Look at
At the moment, I am open.
If we're looking at next week, I don't get back till the 3rd.
I don't think we're in that big of a rush.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean,
Come up
you know,
with
we've,
your
Yeah, we'll
evaluations.
just
We've
approve
gone
it.
along
And
all this time.
I gave you that self-evaluation form. You
Yeah.
think you could dig that out?
sure.
It's a lot better for you to tell us everything you've done, and then you can feel
Okay.
like, trying to get to my Google
I'll have to go
Calendar.
back in my calendars and look.
I'm sure I've got it somewhere too.
No, I
I mean-
have the form.
Can we discuss it? Well, I guess Ted won't be at Monday's meeting
Hey, do you want me to put that on the agenda for Monday?
well, we could pick a day today.
Or you would email that contract to us, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and if you were look it over on Monday, and I could look it over when I get back, I just won't have
Okay.
any cell service or anything while I'm
The big issue in that contract was the fact that the port agreed to pay for insurance for myself and my family.
going.
The problem is we can't find any insurance for me and my family because we're basically a group of one. And
We got it all the way through to the zip code.
Yeah, and I actually met with Terry Luther last week to discuss this exact thing, and the other issue is that we can't pay for your insurance, so all we can do is
right,
give you an increase in pay to
Cover it.
right,
cover it. And that was when, a lot of that,
right. That was all that
The payroll went
Obamacare
up.
stuff. And, yeah.
the pay went up, but we're not paying for
And,
your insurance.
you know, we're paying what's probably the minimal amount we're gonna pay. Because, we're paying basically my and my wife's Medicare premiums and our supplemental and then a policy for Bryce.
Yeah, you guys are paying a minimum, but if we,
But what I'm getting at is the amount.
oh,
is-
right, no, I agree, 100%.
I mean,
because
just
what-
covering me alone, it'd be more than we're,
Yeah, what
than
Terry
what it
told
is
me
now.
was we can't pay for a Medicare supplement.
right.
So we would have to buy an entire policy for
Right,
you
and
and
that
your
was, and that
family.
was the whole thing
Yeah.
about how the amount got raised
Excuse-
last
yeah,
year.
No, I gotcha.
Because remember, we went through all of that stuff, and then we had to figure out, since that was income, the increase in taxes, and Jan figured all that stuff out.
Barely. That's why. That's why, because Jan was
Yeah.
sitting in a
Just as
meeting with
confused,
us.
too.
Yeah.
I just think we need to fix it once and for all.
Just have a pay rate
Okay.
that covers that.
So when do you want to meet?
Ted, when are you
After
back?
the third?
I'm back on the 3rd, late night the 3rd. So the 4th would be the first day. The 9th, I can't.
Have an Oyster House meeting here tonight, on the 9th, so we won't do that. I'm open right now.
I'm just trying
And
to
the
get,
8th is Columbus Day. Is that a holiday for us?
No, I think we trade that one.
Did we
I'll
trade
have to
that for
double
something?
check. I'll have to double check. Whatever the county schedule is.
I'm good either the 11th or the 18th.
The 18th is small ports.
Oh, okay.
Which
so-
I
Oh,
won't
that's
be able
right.
to attend, by
Oh.
the way, much
Oh,
to my
okay.
dismay. I have to go to Texas.
Again?
the 11th is a Thursday?
Yeah.
That looks good to me. Oh, no. Ugh. Ugh. Does Wednesday work?
Wednesday should work.
Okay, Wednesday would be better for me.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Okay, we got something at.
I got
what's
5
it,
events on the
5:30 here?
11th.
Oh, we got a meeting here at 5:30 on Wednesday in this room, so we could meet upstairs.
Yeah.
You know, I know it has to be a public meeting, but,
Had them upstairs.
yeah,
6 o'clock?
yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah. 'cause
Send me
that's
a
what it
reminder.
is.
Yeah, would you send me a reminder, because apparently I don't remember things. Wow, can't believe I forgot. Haven't done that in a long time.
I know, we used to just call and.
Well, I was here yesterday, you'd
That
think
was
I'd
nice.
remember.
Oh. Larry just send that?
Hmm?
Did Larry just send the meeting?
No, no.
Oh, okay.
Ted just sent me a calendar invitation.
Okay.
All right.
So I still have to.
I just put it on my calendar.
Did we go through public comment?
Yes, we closed that already.
Are we
Oh,
adjourned?
That was
Public
a public
comment?
hearing.
Yeah, sorry, you're right. Public comment.
Dana?
Anything? No?
I would
Thank you
move-
for being here.
I would
Good of
move
the
to
order.
Get the order. I would move to adjourn.
Okay.
Second?
Oh, so moved.
Did you have something else?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
All right.